Hello YouTube, Tom here. So if you saw the last video of the leak down of this engine, this Ford 4-liter OHV, number 3 is either got a blown head gasket or cracked head, one of the two. Don't know yet until I have it apart, because it was pushing coolant out of the radiator when you add air to the cylinder. This video is going to be tear down and inspection of everything. Remember, I did say this thing has lifter clatter / tick. And check them out. More than likely, you're going to replace the lifters. I'm going to first drain the coolant, which the coolant valve is right there, but my skid plate's kind of in the way, so either I'm going to make a funnel or just let it go. I want to kind of try and save the coolant, but I don't know if I will or not, because it's still good. Probably going to take off the wiring harness and just flap it up behind the main harness that's connected to the PCM up here. Just have it like bungee cord up here or something like that. I just want the whole harness to be like basically up and just sit up there so you can get it out of the way. Take the lower intake off, the hose is off. And then I gotta unbolt this whole alternator bracket and everything, just lay that forward. Same with this side because it's bolted to the head. And that's pretty much it, other than valve covers. And then after that it's exhaust, and then you can yank the heads off. Unbolt the heads and pull them off. It's actually, this motor is pretty damn simple for how it's made. So I'm going to get down to it. Okay, so I tore down this far. Lower intake off, valve covers off, and everything. I did take the alternator off and just set it over here, but the power wire is still connected. Be in mind you, I still have the battery hooked up. You really shouldn't do that, but I don't care. Took off the whole bracket because only the alternator was on it. AC and power steering pump are just sitting right there, unbolted. In here, I don't think a lifter has collapsed because I'm hearing a tick / clatter every once in a while, so I think it's more like clatter. I'm just gonna replace all lifters. But when I get the rocker shafts off, both sides, and the push rods, push tubes, whatever you want to call them, off, I'm gonna check see if they're bent. The way you do that, you have to have a true flat surface, more like a piece of glass, and roll them on there, which I'll do and show you in a moment. Get these off, undo the exhaust. On this side, I can just undo the exhaust on the Y pipe, hopefully, and just take the whole manifold with it. This side, because the dipstick's tube's right there and it comes up there and goes right in between the exhaust and the head, I'm going to probably have to take this manifold off the head. Now, I might actually put some shorty headers on this because I'm in here anyway. Try an upgrade because these manifolds don't flow all that great. So I might do that. So I'm going to just remove that manifold completely, but I'm going to probably have to undo it from this head here instead of the Y pipe down there. Now looking at this, you can kind of see the cam down in there. I'm just looking for any scoring where the lobes have dug into it, which I don't think it has. I mean, it ran on all 6 when number 3 caught up. There's a lot of carbon in these ports, and because when I did the leak down test on number 3, some of the air was leaking into the intake runner. I just ordered new heavy-duty heads from King's cylinder heads. They're a little bit, they're on the most expensive side, but I don't like remanufactured heads. I'd rather have brand new heavy-duty casting heads because these 4-liters do have a problem with cracking heads, which I'm mostly expecting a cracked head on number 3. And since I'm in here, might as well do them both. So I'm going to get these rocker shafts off and push rods. Another thing, Some people like to mark push rods and put them exactly back where they go. I don't do that. Realistically, it doesn't really matter. The oil's there to keep it from really tearing each metal part up. There is some sort of wear pattern, but to me it's not enough to actually put it back in the right spot. 'Cause some people will say, oh, it'll make the gap even bigger now. I never really had that problem. Especially on a diesel engine, when you put that back together with all the push tubes, you just throw it back together and adjust it, and never have a problem. So the only time you replace push tube or push rod, or however you want to call it, is if they're bent or dinged up really good at the end, which on these 4 liters right here is where the typical lack of oil spot is, up here. So going to do that. The harness, I kind of just unplugged everything, including the crank sensor that came up through here, shoved it off to the side. This harness kind of, there's one wire that goes all the way down to the oil pressure sensor that I kind of just shoved the harness back enough to where I can unhook everything. Biggest problem is this giant AC line back here that goes around the whole back side of the motor, but hopefully it's out of the way enough I can get back there. So now I'm going to take the rocker shafts off. Okay, so here's the rocker shafts. This is the passenger side, this is the driver's side. Just looking at them, you look down in the hole there, move the light over. Let me get this light, that might be better. See right down in there, if you look at every one of them, they all have pretty much the same wear, which is good except for this one. Looks like it went a little deeper. It's more than likely going to replace that rocker arm. But also, where it meets the valve, you can kind of see it right there, right there. There's a nick in it. Definitely going to replace that one. That one, still pretty good. Same there. So really, the only rocker arm on the passenger side needs to be replaced is the number 3, I believe, exhaust. Because of how deep it looked like it dug into the rocker arm, as well as the nick on the, you can kind of see it right there. Kind of hard to see. Right there, that little nick there. If that wasn't dug in, I might have just reused that, but since it's dug in there and nicked there, I'm just going to replace that one. Now on the driver's side, if you look in here, there are no real deep wear on the driver's side. And when this engine was running, when I heard the ticking noise, it always sounded like the passenger side rear through number 3 cylinder. So that would probably explain why, the ticking right there. Now that push rod that was in there is worn a bit more than all the rest of the push rods up here where they went in their cup holes. And when you stick that push rod in the hole there and kind of spin it around and just feel it, it feels uneven compared to all the other ones when you spin whatever push rod you want to spin in there. So probably going to replace one push rod just for the fact that it dug into that rocker arm. As long as all the rest are not bent, I'll have to roll them on a piece of glass, see? Then I'll just replace 3 rocker arms, because on the driver's side, since all these are good, if you look at where the valve gets hit, all of them are good. And then you get to this one and you can see another nice nick in there, so I'm going to replace that one. And look at that one's okay. And then this one is like the worst. As for nick, you can see it really dug in there. So with that said, probably 1 push rod, as long as the others aren't bent, and 3 rocker arms. So for basically seeing if these push rods or push tubes are bent, there's a piece of glass here. Now this is on an end table, but I wiped these things off, so it'll be fine. you just, any piece of glass is basically always naturally straight, and basically you just sit them like that. You look down like that and just roll them. If you see a wobble in them, they're bad. If you don't, you can reuse them as long as like the other one isn't ground through all that much. So I'm gonna check all the rest of the ones. So I just checked all the push rods and found most of them to be slightly bent. Not terrible, but if you look at it closely, it would wobble up and down a bit. Because you want to look at the middle, and it would wobble up and down, just slightly. Very slightly. Toss them to the idea. Do I just throw these back in or just buy new ones? Well, if they don't cost that much, I might just buy completely new push rods and those 3 rocker arms. So for the top, for lifter, for the push rods and rocker arms, depending on how much the push tube costs, I think I might just replace all of them. So now, on to removing this passenger head. Now I already undid the exhaust on the Y pipe down below there. Since this truck's rust free, it did not have any problems with that, which is lovely. So now, get the socket for that. So that's the Torx bit head that you have to grab, and it's what is it? T55, Torx 55. This is a hollow one, but non-hollow would work because these are not ones that need a hollow. So I'm gonna go ahead and rip these off, or right now the passenger head off. So I'm gonna take that off and we're gonna look at it. Okay, so remove the head, and as you can see, some carbon on there, some carbon on there. Hey, look, we got coolant in the cylinder, and look how clean the cylinder is. Now I'd rip the head gasket off the block because it was stuck to it, but I'll show you the head gasket in a minute. It actually is a cracked head, and I can show you in a moment. But as you can see, the coolant in there and how clean that piston is. This is the reason why my number 3 spark plug kept getting fouled out when it was at 54 thousandths of an inch. 44 thousandths, it was misfiring on startup, but once it burned through this stuff, it would run fine. So this is where my coolant has been going, and it's the reason why number 3 kept getting fouled out. So as you come over to the head that's sitting here, you can kind of look at the cylinders, compare them a bit, how dry and clean it is. Same with that one. And then you look at number 3. Ah, that's damp. Well, typical spot they crack, right between the valves. Right there, where my light's shining over. Let's see if you can see it. Without even taking the valves out. Come on, focus. Right there's the crack. I knew it. I just knew it. It had a cracked head. That's why I ordered new heads. Considering it was also leaking out the intake. Yep. Where is it again? Ah, there it is. Right there. Cracked head. So can a cracked head foul out your spark plugs but not make the engine overheat? Yeah. It would eventually overheat if you didn't keep up on your coolant level. Because if you look at the head gasket here, nowhere do I ever see the fire ring be compromised into the cooling jackets. Because this is a cooling jacket, this is a cooling jacket, jacket. I believe these two are, I believe these two are. Cooling jackets all over this thing, yet you don't see the fire ring ever really compromised. So, on any of these. So, diagnosis, cracked cylinder head. Again, you don't see the firing blown out anywhere. You don't. Head gasket was fine. It was a cracked head. So, there's my suspicions correct. Cracked head. Now another thing about cracked head, I did at one point in time have a code for that O2 sensor slow response. Probably because of coolant contamination, which I didn't know at the time, and now considering I was noticing my coolant getting low, number 3 always getting fouled out, and missing on startup when the gap was closed. I replaced that one not too long ago, and it hasn't thrown a slow code again. So for right now, I'm going to leave that O2 sensor there. And as long as I don't get a code for slow response, then I'll be good. The next step is to take the other cylinder head off and clean the block up and everything. Okay, the block's all cleaned. If you look at something here on the block, or the cylinders, I don't know if you can see that. Let me grab a flashlight. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, you kind of can. You can see the cross hatches. Kind of hard to see, but in my eyes, the driver's side cross hatches, it'd be the same as that one, but that one's up, are still really visible and really good. Little mark is from where the piston was for a while. That mark doesn't matter, but you can still see the cross hatches on the driver's side. But something to note, if you look at the passenger side, there's a little oil in there. You can still see the cross hatches in this number 3 cylinder, but this is where the coolant leaked in, as you can see by the clean piston. The cylinder looks, well, pretty like coolant contaminated on the cylinder wall. You can still see the cross hatches, but like there's something else still on the cylinder wall. Then if you look at the front 2 cylinders on the passenger side, to me it looks like an over-fueling type of stain on the wall. Now the ring ridge is pretty good because this motor doesn't have that many miles on it, only 140,000, which is pretty low because these motors can go 300,000 miles. What I think happened, and I think this head's been cracked for a good while, is that this cylinder being cracked and having coolant dropped in, it's burning the coolant off, and since coolant is half water, steam has oxygen in it, and due to oxygen sensor there, when it's in closed loop, senses more oxygen than, like there's more oxygen coming through than there should be, so it's thinking, oh, I should add more fuel. Hence I think this is why it's got this sort of pitting, not exactly pitting, it's sort of like stain pitting. You can kind of see the cross hatches, but it looks like it's been over fueling. And the same thing with this one, but this one's just up right now. But I think this has been I think this cracked head has been cracked for a while, because this side, these two definitely look like they've been over fueled for quite some time, and that one's just been contaminated with coolant. If I wanted to be real anal about this motor, but I'm not going to because it's a whole lot more work than I really want to deal with. Since the ring ridge is not that bad, I could just drop the pan and pull these 3 pistons out, re-ring them, re-hone these cylinders, and then slap them back together to clean up the cylinder wall. But I'm not going to do that. That's way more work than I really want to do with this thing. But it's just something to note. With that cracked head, it looked like it overfueled this side, which also in turns with it burning coolant, it contaminated the O2 sensor, which is probably what made the code for slow response come up. And I have no idea how much it damaged the catalytic converter. That's something to also think about when this type of failure happens. Right now I have no codes for the catalytic converter for like efficiency, so I'm just gonna leave it. If it comes up, well then I just gut them, and with the SCT tuner I can just turn off that third O2 sensor, and then that would be done with that. But right now the lifters are all out. I cleaned up the block, and also another thing, since the engine is open like this, and I've sprayed brake clean and God knows what else fell into the pan, when you do any type of engine work like this, it's always good to change the oil. Even though this is not due for an oil change yet, I'm changing it anyway. So to clean the head surface, I use this wire wheel. Some of you might cringe about it. Whatever. All this is really doing is taking off the gasket material. I used like an angle grinder, or not air type little air angle grinder. This right here, I use this. But with this on it, because all this I needed to do is to take the leftover gasket material off without gouging the head, and it doesn't gouge the head. One thing about cleaning the deck, or not, why do I say head? The deck. One thing about cleaning the deck, you want to use something that's not going to gouge this or see sparks when you're using something like this. When you see sparks, it's removing material. You don't want that. This doesn't remove material. It'll scratch it up, but it's not going to remove it. And what I'm getting at is if you look really closely at like the deck, you can kind of see the machining marks all along the deck. That's when you know it's still true. And also, you're not really gouging it at all. You can kind of see it right there. It's those marks right there that are all nice and perfectly like sort of curved. Those are the machining marks from the factory from when they deck these heads, or why do I say heads? They deck the blocks. As long as you see that, you'll be golden. And the head, or not the head, why do I keep saying that? The block will be fine. I don't know what's wrong with me today. But that's cleaning the block. So after that, I just used one of these like 3M type pads to clean the rest of my valve covers and that right there. There's the manifolds, the gaskets, the old heads, new heads, old gaskets. Something interesting, you ever wonder how the top end gets oiled in these motors? You look right here, this is one of the head bolt holes. That hole right there sends oil into this head bolt air cylinder, whatever you want to call it. Because the head bolt doesn't fit tightly around the head, it just sits there like there's space around the bolt between the head. And if you go over to the heads, you look at them, you see this middle one, the same type of hole. It'll probably be better to see it in this one. Yeah, you see that same type of hole there. that just goes right to this head bolt hole. And then you can see the hole in there where it gets the oil from the block. So that's how the top end's oiled with this engine. Some engines have it go up to the push rod, but these push rods are not hollow. They get their oil from this hole right here, and it goes through that shaft and then the rockers. I mean, if you actually look right in there, you can see the little hole in there. That's actually hollow in there. So the oil gets passed through the center one. As you can see, there's space around the bolt, and then disperses the oil through the whole shaft. A little interesting. Sometimes, usually they send them up through the push rods, but in this motor, it's not the case. So there it is. The block's all cleaned and everything.